Hey, Tony here, and welcome to this waveSharp 3 Getting Started video. We're going to run through some of the basic features of the brand new waveSharp 3 free image sharpening software. So with no further ado, I've got my Mars image opened. This is the result of a stack of a video file taken a few months ago of Mars. And you can see on the default setting here, the region of interest screen is opened, and I'm going to click on this magnifier here so I can kind of zoom in a little bit so you can see some of the impacts of the processing steps that I'm going to place on this Mars image. Now, the first thing you notice is that the polar ice cap on Mars is kind of pointing to the left. And what I'd like to do is just sort of rotate that just a little bit. And to do that, I'm going to go into the File Actions tab here, and I'm going to do a rotation here. I'm going to rotate it about 30 degrees and see what happens here. So put in 30 and we click on Enter. And you can see it's rotated just a little bit. Maybe put in 50 here on the rotation and press Enter. And this is basically with the polar ice cap here pointing a little bit more to the north, is how you might image and see Mars if you're looking at it with your eyes. So we'll leave it like this for now with this polar ice cap. But you can see here on this File Actions tab some of the many great things you can do with waveSharp 3 on rotating your image, amongst other things. Let's go back to the Processing tab here. I'm going to start doing some sharpening effects. Now, some of the things in waveSharp 3, I can select here on this convolve setting here. I can go in and I'm going to set the luminance setting for the convolution style. And I'm also going to check off chroma-denoise here. And you see what this will do in a few moments. And then for the filter setting here, I'm going to go ahead and select the Z-Gauss filter setting. And you'll see what that does in a few moments on this Mars image. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do some sharpening. So in waveSharp 3, you can see that we can actually slide up to 200 here. Previously, it was only around 100 we could slide to. So on the second layer here on sharpening, let's set it to about 100, and the third one around 50. One of the really cool things in waveSharp 3 is you can actually click on this button here that is Estimate Filter. And so what it will do here is maybe take away some of the guesswork on what the sharpening filter setting should be and kind of put in a starting point for you. And you can see it's already got a number in here, 0.123. And you can see straight away, if you look at the magnified image, we've gone ahead and done some nice sharpening on the image. Now, if I go into chroma-denoise, I'm going to increase this to around 4. And you see there's a very subtle effect here. If I toggle this on and off, on the noise that you see in the Mars image. Now in the Z-Gauss, you can also see if I move this up and down, you can see the sharpening impact this has when I set the factor settings here. And all I'm doing is I'm on my mouse wheel and I'm scrolling the wheel up and down. So without it looking kind of over sharpened, I'm going to leave this to around 0.7 as you play around with waveSharp 3 for yourself. Definitely give this a go, or give it a whirl if you like. The next thing I want to do is I want to go into the histogram. Now, in waveSharp 3, I'm going to check off the auto recalculation. And because I've got an ROI view, I'm going to select ROI here. Now, the threshold setting here sets the threshold of kind of the RGB levels. And one of the nice things in waveSharp 3 is there's an auto setting. So I'm going to check that off, and you can see here it puts in a threshold setting for me. So it's a great starting point for you as you set your histogram and RGB settings. The other thing I'm going to do here in waveSharp 3 is there's a saturation setting. Typically, I'm going to move this over to around, you see the number here on the left-hand side, to around 0.6-ish on the value. There's also a vibrance setting here, which you'll notice if I slide this all the way over to the right, it does have an impact on the saturation. So I'm going to just dial this back here, just a kind of midway between the luminance and the saturation setting. A lot of this is kind of personal preference on what you might look for. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize the histogram. Now you can see here we've got some noise in the image in Mars. And I'm going to go into the denoise setting here in waveSharp 3. One of the nice things that waveSharp 3 will do is on a sharpened image. So if I select here on the sharpened image and check this off, you can see that a denoise has actually taken place. And this is it's a preset value on the denoise. And again, it acts as a great starting point for you as you play around with these sliders here on your noise settings. For example, on this middle one here, if I slide this all the way to the left here, you can see the noise starts to come back in. And so if I move it over to the right, you can see the noise has kind of gone away. I'm going to leave it around midway here. Again, this is personal preference on what you might look for. And if I toggle this setting here on and off, you can see the noise appears and then disappears. So let's go ahead and minimize that. Now, one of the nice things in waveSharp 3 is the ability to do a curve setting. And so I'm going to go ahead and activate this setting. I'm going to go into manual and I'm going to click on linear as a preset. And if I move this curve setting down just a little bit, you can see what it does. It slightly darkens the image. And I'm also going to increase these levels here. So you can see the contrast is kind of increased by a very subtle amount in the Mars image. And again, a lot of this, again, is personal preference on how you want your final image to look. So in waveSharp 3, this curves tool is a really nice feature, a nice capability. The last thing I'm going to show you in this video is the tools icon here. And if I click on active here, there's a nice capability here, which is called deconvolve. And it's another sharpening capability. And if I activate it and then go into strength and mouse wheel up, and I'm going to make this pretty strong. And you can see there's a very, very subtle sharpening effect is now taking place on the image. And if I toggle this on and off, you can see what this has done to the image. So I'm gonna dial this back quite a bit because it looks a bit over sharpened to me. And I'm gonna put it, let's put it around, say 12, 13, something like that. The other thing in this tools thing is a dehaze option. You'll notice in this Mars image, there's a very subtle fringing around the edge. It almost looks like a blue fringing. And so if I check off dehaze here, you can see that has kind of removed some of that fringing and kind of dehaze the overall image. And so it's another nice capability in waveSharp 3, again, to kind of improve the image to your personal preference again. So let's go ahead and close that. So based on what we had right at the very beginning and this final result here, I think you would agree in waveSharp 3, there's some really nice capabilities that have been added to the tool. So I definitely encourage you, please subscribe to this channel. I put the download link to waveSharp 3 in the description of the video, and go ahead and enjoy. Thank you very much.